good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast State of the Balance with me, your host, Imperial Dane, telling you what's good and what's bad. Well, you know how things are looking overall from my perspective. As for the last month's state of the balance, how have things been? Well, you know, things are again settled into the pattern, you know, so to go for a lot of penal tubers into emphasis shams. There's been a slight decrease there. They're trying more varied strategies. You're seeing some with counter-attack. You're seeing some, you know, just a lot of T-34s. But overall, it's still very much heavily tilting towards just penal trooper play in one way or the other, and thusly, as you know, a Command Vest or a Wehrmacht player, that's what you have to prepare for and be prepared to deal with. The overall bigger question is merely what sort of end game will they have? Will it be emphasis Shermans, regular T-34s? Will it be T-35s? Will it be IS-2s? Which is making a slight return, but overall nothing really huge as of yet. I'm not saying particularly have to pay attention to, but it does happen. But beyond that, I mean, there's not really been any huge changes there. Otherwise, with the third meta game, again, it'll be a lot of penal troops, maybe some mortars, depending on the doctrine they go. There are some who go for conscript builds, which synergize then with doctrines chosen with that. But overall, it's not like there's been so many real big shake-up there. I mean, overall, most of the stuff that happens is largely an increase in penal troops with anti-tank rifles, which is largely due to the Oberkommand West and the Luchs, which tend to give the Soviet player a very hard time unless they get out, T-75, so have some other way of dealing with it. So that's probably, a thing there. I might result in slightly more British players than American players because they can deal better with the Oberkommando West Luchs overall, and I've increasingly seen a lot more British play, so there might be some overall choices there in armies chosen, just to have a better chance versus the Oberkommando West and its Luchs Rush. As for the Brits, I mean, there's increasing number of players going for just heavy infantry builds into builds and sections, then into fast tanks, and other variations on that theme. Mobile assault is still potent and popular, though there's a slight increase in other regiments. Special weapons, in particular the anti-tank rifle, again, very popular to count German light vehicles, so the AAC armoured car I still think is a pretty solid choice as well in there, and certainly one of your better counters to the Luchs Aufklärungspanzer. But beyond that, there's not been a huge set of changes with the British. Again, it's just more infantry builds that I think are becoming more common with the British rather than fast tech. They just build a lot of sections, bolster them, and that way just rely on raw power to try and bash their way through. So that's a slight change there within the British metagame. As to the American metagame, there's an increased number of people going for captains due to the Oberkommando West penchant for Luchs. Again, as you might be noticing, I'm talking a lot about the Luchs. Again, the metagame to an extent is, at least for the Allies, shaping around the Luchs, which, as you might be catching on to then, rather indicates the Luchs might be tad much at the moment. I'll get into that. But again, for the Americans, getting more stewards, more captains, so again, the Lieutenant is still, also popular and still also good aggressive play. There's Shermans, there's EC8s also now becoming more common. Armor company is still popular. Heavy cavalry is popular. So there's some variety there within American strategies, which is good. There's heavy BAR builds, some with bazookas, Rangers and all that. So there's some variety in that regard. I do feel like the Americans are in a good spot. The British, probably still need to have some kind of look at the infantry section somehow. They again, nothing too bad, and possibly not without some kind of compensation elsewhere. But for the Americans, I think it looks fine. The overall issue, I think, right now, as I've been hinting at, is the Oberkommando West Luchs, which is increasingly, I think, warping the Allied meta to be around it, because if you don't have the perfect response, your opponent does, or just plays really, really well with it, it can really just be an absolute problem for you. And again, with the Oberkommando West, there are some who don't go for it. There are Oberkommando players who go for different things, but the vast majority of Oberkommando West players will just rush your Luchs into some kind of call. And obviously, the call and a half will be dealt with the upcoming patch, but the Luchs will not. And I do think the Luchs is a problem that needs to be dealt with. Either they need to make it more expensive, or they need to nerf it somehow. Its accuracy, its health, armor, but I think something needs to change for the Luchs, because as it currently is, I think it's too efficient a package that can swing the guard game too hard if you can't specifically hard counter it, and I think that's not exactly good for the game at all. And again, it just also forces the Allies into such more narrow set of strategies and tactics, because otherwise the Luchs completely demolishes them. So I definitely think the Luchs needs to be nerfed. One way or the other, it needs to be nerfed. I don't think there's any way around not nerfing the Luchs. So that, I think, should be a priority for Relic to deal with that one. Again, it's hard to say about the Oberkommando. You can still play them decently, aggressively and all that, but again, it's just sort of increasingly warping around the Luchs, and that's definitely not something I think that is healthy for the game. A bit like how penal triple spam is not healthy for the game either, which obviously again is getting nerfed, which is good, but you know, if they're not nerfing the Luchs, that's going to be a problem. So the Luchs definitely needs to be nerfed. As for the Wehrmacht, well, you're getting more Panther play, more Sturmpanzer play, overall more variety of style of play, some with mechanized assault, some with Oststurm, mobile defense. I mean, there's still some things I'm not hugely happy about the Wehrmacht. Again, sort of early game, a bit some issues in the late game. Again, how they can sort of, you know, very much snowball, depending on how things go. I mean, either it's a good snowball, or it's a snowball that very quickly falls apart. They're sort of a bit like, you know, either you just do it, or you don't really. Either you sort of dominate, you just get completely blown out and can't come back. And that's sort of the issue with the Wehrmacht. There's a bit of sort of tendency just, you know, either or. And that could probably do some looking into. But I'm not entirely sure how to fix the whole, you know, either they just do it, or they fall apart. I mean, falling apart you can sort of do with getting the better combat mechanics, which, you know, what they do not have at the moment. My still suggestion would be, you know, adding some sort of elite infantry unit to the heavy panzer corps, like, you know, just call it, I don't know, veteran grenadiers or something like that. But beyond that, it's a bit harder to put my finger on that one. Maybe slightly nerf something, but then, you know, compensate elsewhere again like that. But it's a bit tricky to say there. It's a bit tricky to say. It's not like Wehrmacht is in a bad spot, but at times it can feel sort of very, I feel, swingy between either extreme, which isn't particularly good. There's some thoughts there, but again, it's a bit hard to sort of specifically come up with a solution there to sort of really deal with it. But overall, I mean, the Wehrmacht, I think, is sort of a pretty good state, in particular because, again, with the Allies being so focused on the Luchs, I mean, they're sort of not quite giving as much thought to the Wehrmacht, which is good. But again, we'll have to see. But obviously, right now, again, I think the big priority for the game, besides, you know, nerfing penalties in the calling meta, is nerfing the Luchs, which is not happening with the upcoming balance previously so far. Also note there's been updates for 2 weeks. I'm thinking there'll soon be something out there, probably sort of early September. It'll be released, and then we can sort of play around with that. But I do hope they sort of sneak in a fix there for the Luchs as well, just sort of as a big surprise, because something needs to happen there. Something desperately needs to happen with the Luchs, I believe. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this and learned something from this month's State of the Balance. If you didn't know, like, subscribe, share, and comment on it. This is Imperial Dane, off for another time with another video. Cheers.